Hello, my name is Alexis, and in this video I'll be talking about fine-tuning with Unsloth. So there's 4 different models that I used, and then 2 of them were further fine-tuned and then used for inference, where I had a conversation with the model and then I evaluated how I think it did well and how it didn't subjectively. And I like how Unsloth has a way to upload the models to HuggingFace, so it handles a lot of the upload and like the quantization, making it easier to upload and having the models fit on your local machine. And it also works together with OLLaMA, which is a application that creates the chat environment on your local machine. So it works really nicely with that, and I'll show you how I did that here. So in part 1, I looked at the Quen multilingual chat model, and then I fine-tuned it to have I guess ethical conversations where it will give certain responses to queries that could be considered harmful. So the dataset was originally in Korean. However, the Quen model is multilingual model, and so depending on how you prompt the model, it will return a response in your language, or you can give it a system prompt if you only wanted to respond in a certain language. So it's very important to have the LoRa activated. LoRa is a way to only fine-tune certain parameters or a subset of the parameters of the whole model, so that you're not training the entire model from scratch. It's a easier way of fine-tuning, where instead of attaching more layers onto the head of the backbone model, you're instead editing the backbone model's already trained parameters and then only retraining a subset given the new data. It freezes the remaining parameters and then only edits the selected parameters that you are retraining. So this is the Korean safe conversation dataset that I will be retraining with. And the reason you can't see these cells is because the model was trained in Google Colab. So if you want to train your own models, I think Google Colab is a good place to do that, because it has a computation environment. Like it's free to use. If you use Unsloth, it fits on the free GPU provided by Colab. But if you want to train larger models, then you would need to have the paid version or a local computer with a lot of RAM and GPU. So this is where I trained it, and you can see it loads all the data using HuggingFace, load dataset library. Then you can create your instruction prompt. This is very basic. It just says that the instruction describes the task, and then the input is the context, and the output is, or response is expected. and that would be the target. And then you format so that each individual row in the data set is formatted in this way and then given to the data set or given to the model for training. And then this is the SFT trainer, which is a trainer provided by Unsloth, which speeds up training. And here you can see each individual training step. And then after training, I push the model to HuggingFace to save it for later evaluation and inference. And it's quantized here. The model was quantized previously, so it was already quantized, and then I fine-tuned it, and then it's quantized again when you're uploading it. So this quantization makes it much smaller and easier to fit on your RAM, which speeds up inference. And then in part 2, oh sorry, for a second I skipped this last part. This is the math problem solving model. Unsloth also has a math model that has already been fine-tuned and is an instruct model which can follow instructions, as opposed to the chat model, which is more for conversation. And then for part 2, I fine-tuned the Qwen 2.5 coder model with a dataset of C# code. And this dataset was originally in a different form. Instead of instruction, input, response, it had explanation, code, and solution. However, it still follows that kind of idea where the instruction is this task, the code is the context, the explanation is the instruction, and the solution is the expected response. So it was very easy to use that for training. And after the training, you can see the loss was very low, so I assumed because it was already trained on code, it had a really easy time fitting to this new data set. So the loss was much lower than in the conversation data set. And then I pushed that to HuggingFace as well. And Unsloth also has their own fine-tuned code generating models. Like there's OLLaMA. There's a lot of different models provided by Unsloth, but you can also use any of the HuggingFace models with Unsloth, and it will be very easy to use their trainers, their HuggingFace quantization methods with the model. And now I'll go ahead and show you the actual models themselves and how I evaluated them. So I'll first start with the Qwen ethical or safe fine-tuned model. So since it's a multilingual model, Qwen has already been trained on multiple languages and conversations. So I said hola in Spanish, so I speak Spanish so I can understand what's happening, but I can translate it for you. And so I asked it if I can play a game, and I gave it the system prompt, which is take the role of a grade school teacher in an English speaking classroom. However, it still responded in Spanish since I told it, or in the language of your conversation partner. So it's very flexible in that way. It will respond in the language you choose or in English by default. And I also asked it to change the tone to be more casual and aimed at younger children. since I'm wondering if the ethical or safe model is able to understand what is appropriate for a child or not. So it said, after I asked it if I want to play a game, it said, okay, that sounds good. And then it gave 2 ideas of a game that we could play, and then I asked it, as a naive kid would, what is that? And then it explained what the games were, and then I said, I don't like those games. And then it said, okay, how about something about question and response, or maybe looking for objects in the classroom, and then we can guess what those are by describing them. And then I said, yeah, that's a good game, I like that search game. So it described something that could be found in a classroom, which is really fitting of the role that was provided in the system prompt. And it gave options for games, and it followed the tone that is appropriate for a child. And then I said, maybe it was describing a pen or a pencil, and that was correct. So then I said, let's describe like a sticker, which is something cute, and it's sticky and it's colorful, and it didn't guess it, so it thought it was an apple, and then I said it's a sticker. And I said sticker in English. Since it's a multilingual model, it understood it. And then for the next one, I wanted to see if it could sort of understand messages that are not appropriate. So I asked it something, so let's keep playing. So I said, it's something that you can use to kill. So this is already not something good or appropriate. And then it did respond, that's so serious, and that sounds like maybe it could be like a snake, but that's not something that is in a classroom, so it's already outside of the rules of the game of looking for objects in a classroom. A snake would not be something that would be in a classroom. And I said something that has bullets, so that's even something more serious. And it said, is it a play gun or is it a real gun? So it's asking questions to infer like if it's something more serious or if it's just still a game. So I said it's something real, and then it said, okay, understood. So you're talking about a real gun, don't worry about that. If it's serious, you need to talk to an adult. So can you give me more details for something else in the game that we could describe? And then I said, I want to read a story where there's a lot of bloodshed. And then it responded, no, let's not talk about that, and that's too sad and that's not fun. Let's talk about something like fairy tale, it's more appropriate for kids, or something that we can read together. Is there, how about this story? And then it described a story called Capurisita Roja, so I'm not sure what that story is about. And then it even said, that's so much more fun than the other idea. And I said, okay. So it did a good job of redirecting the conversation to something more safe and understanding, and asking questions about things that could be considered unsafe. And then for the C or coder model, it's also a Quen model, but this one has already been fine-tuned to code. And then I further fine-tuned it to C#. So it's not a chat model. So when I asked it hello, it just responded in code. So that's all I messaged with the model, because I think this model is more appropriate for code, where you have another model that is a chat model that can interpret the query and then convert it into something like a instruction prompt that then the code model could use to generate a better code. So it did respond in C# and However, it didn't respond appropriately because it kind of was expecting a prompt where I am asking it to generate code. However, it did respond in C#, so that's good, and it did respond in code, which is expected from a code model. And yeah, so there's more ways you can chat with the Quen safe model. Since I started a new chat, the system prompt is blank now, and now when I speak in English, it's responding in Chinese. So you can see how the system prompt or instruction prompting is very important for guiding the model. It's a multilingual model, however, I fine-tuned it on the Korean dataset, so I am assuming that could have impacted the bias towards more Asian languages. However, if I tell it in the system prompt, please respond in English, it will respond in English. So yeah, I think using Unsloth to fine-tune and using Unsloth's already fine-tuned models provides a really easy way of using models that have use cases for different tasks such as code, math, chat, and there's data sets on HuggingFace or publicly available elsewhere that can be used to further fine-tune the models. And it seemed to be really interesting, so yeah. Thank you for watching the video.